What would you do if you became a billionaire and found your smartest friend working as a waitress? The friend who helped you when nobody believed in you? Marcus faced this exact moment, and his decision shocked everyone, including her. This isn't about money. It's about something far more powerful. Watch until the end. Marcus Chin's hands froze mid-reach for his water glass. His heart pounded as recognition hit him like a thunderbolt. That voice, soft, familiar, yet carrying a weight of exhaustion he'd never heard before, belonged to someone he never expected to see here. "I'll be right back with your orders, sir." He looked up, and time seemed to stop. Sarah Mitchell. The Sarah Mitchell who had once been the brightest student in their entire high school. The girl who'd tutored him through calculus when he was failing. The friend who'd believed in him when no one else did. Now, at 42 years old, she stood before him in a worn waitress uniform at this roadside diner, her name tag slightly crooked, her eyes avoiding his as she hurried away. Marcus, now worth over $3 billion from his tech empire, had stopped at this random diner in Ohio during a cross-country road trip, a rare moment of anonymity away from boardrooms and private jets. He'd wanted to feel normal again, to remember his roots. He never imagined those roots would literally serve him coffee. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, casting shadows across the checkered floor as Marcus sat stunned in the cracked vinyl booth. His expensive watch felt suddenly heavy on his wrist. Outside, his rental car sat in the parking lot. He'd specifically chosen something ordinary, a simple sedan instead of the luxury vehicles he was accustomed to. This whole trip was supposed to be about rediscovering the simple pleasures he'd lost in his climb to success. The diner smelled of coffee and grilled onions, sounds of sizzling from the kitchen mixing with quiet country music from an old radio. A couple sat in the corner booth, and a truck driver nursed his coffee at the counter. Everything seemed so normal, so ordinary. Yet Marcus felt like he'd stumbled into an alternate universe. He watched Sarah move between tables, her movements efficient but tired. She balanced plates with practiced ease, smiled politely at customers, refilled coffee cups without being asked. There was a professionalism to her work, a quiet dignity despite the circumstances. But Marcus could see the fatigue in the slight slump of her shoulders, the way she paused for just a moment between tasks to steady herself. His mind raced with questions. How had this happened? Where had life taken her after they'd lost touch? The Sarah he remembered had been unstoppable, full of energy and ambition. She'd always had a plan, always knew exactly where she was headed. Seeing her here felt wrong, like discovering a precious painting hanging in a thrift store. Marcus realized his coffee had gone cold. He hadn't touched his menu. He couldn't stop staring, trying to reconcile the brilliant girl from his memories with the exhausted woman before him. 25 years was a long time, he knew. People changed. Life happened. But this transformation seemed too dramatic, too tragic for someone who'd had so much promise. 25 years ago, Marcus and Sarah had been inseparable friends at Lincoln High School. While he'd been the class troublemaker with big dreams and poor grades, Sarah had been destined for greatness. She'd received a full scholarship to MIT, planning to become a biomedical engineer. Everyone knew she'd changed the world. Marcus had taken a different path, dropping out of community college to start a small software company in his garage. Through countless failures and near bankruptcies, he'd eventually created an app that revolutionized cloud computing. Success found him at 30, and he never looked back. But Sarah? He'd lost touch with her after graduation. In the chaos of building his empire, He'd forgotten to maintain those precious friendships. Now, guilt washed over him as he watched her serve tables, her movements practiced but weary. When she returned with his meal, he gently touched her hand. "Sarah, it's me, Marcus." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, he saw the vibrant girl he once knew. Then her face crumbled, and she pulled away. I need to take care of other customers." Marcus sat back, his appetite completely gone despite the steaming burger and fries before him. He remembered their senior year so vividly now. They'd spent countless afternoons in the library, Sarah patiently explaining mathematical concepts that seemed like foreign languages to him. She never made him feel stupid, never showed frustration when he asked her to explain something for the third or fourth time. She'd been more than just a tutor. Sarah had been the person who saw potential in him when teachers had written him off as a lost cause. When he talked about his wild ideas for technology and business, his parents had called them fantasies. His guidance counselor had suggested trade school, but Sarah had listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions, encouraging him to think bigger. He remembered the day of their graduation. Sarah had given the valedictorian speech, talking about how their generation would solve the world's greatest problems. Her eyes had been so bright, so full of hope and determination. Marcus had clapped until his hands hurt, genuinely believing she would accomplish everything she set out to do. After graduation, they'd promised to stay in touch. For the first few months, they'd exchanged emails and occasional phone calls. Sarah had been thriving at MIT, telling him about her classes, her research projects, the incredible professors she was learning from. Marcus had been struggling with his first failed startup, living on ramen noodles and maxed out credit cards. Then the calls became less frequent. Emails went unanswered for weeks, then months. Marcus had been consumed by his work, pouring every waking hour into trying to make something successful. When his second startup failed, he'd been too ashamed to reach out. When his third venture finally started gaining traction, he'd been too busy. Years blurred together in a haze of coding, pitching investors, and scaling his business. By the time Marcus had achieved real success, a full decade had passed since he'd last spoken to Sarah. He thought about reaching out, but what would he say? He'd convinced himself she was probably achieving her own great things, that she wouldn't want to hear from her old high school friend who disappeared from her life. Now he understood how selfish that thinking had been. He'd been so wrapped up in his own world that he'd never considered she might need help, might be facing challenges of her own. The tech industry loved to celebrate self-made success stories, but Marcus was realizing his success hadn't been self-made at all. Sarah had been part of his foundation, and he'd abandoned that foundation the moment it became inconvenient to maintain. He watched her laugh at something an elderly customer said, saw her refill waters for a family with young children, noticed how she moved with quiet competence through her duties. There was still grace in her movements, still kindness in her interactions. Life might have redirected her path, but it hadn't destroyed who she was at her core. Marcus picked up his fork, then set it down again. The food might as well have been cardboard. His mind was spinning with questions, with regret, with a growing determination to understand what had happened to his friend. He'd built $1 billion company by solving problems. Surely he could find a way to help Sarah, to somehow make up for all those lost years. But first, he needed her to talk to him. And judging by the way she was deliberately avoiding his table, choosing to serve every other customer first, that wasn't going to be easy. Marcus couldn't leave without answers. He waited until her shift ended, sitting in his rental car outside. When Sarah emerged at midnight, he approached her carefully. "Please," he said, "just tell me what happened." In the dim parking lot, Sarah's story poured out. She'd gone to MIT as planned, excelling in her first 2 years. Then her father had suffered a massive stroke. Her mother couldn't handle the medical bills and care alone. Sarah had dropped out, returning home to help. She planned to go back to school, but life had other ideas. Her mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Then Sarah's younger brother was in a car accident, leaving him partially disabled. She'd become the sole provider for her entire family, working multiple jobs, sacrificing her dreams one day at a time. "I was going to change the world," she laughed bitterly. "Instead, I'm just trying to survive in it." Marcus felt his throat tighten. While he'd been climbing the ladder of success, his friend had been drowning in circumstances beyond her control, and he'd been too absorbed in his own life to notice. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just a few scattered cars under the pale glow of streetlights. A cool breeze swept through, and Marcus noticed Sarah pull her thin jacket tighter around herself. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of everything she'd been carrying alone. "When Dad had his stroke, I was in the middle of a major research project," Sarah continued, her voice steady but distant, as if she were recounting someone else's life. "My professor told me it could wait, that family came first. I thought I'd take 1 semester off, maybe 2 at most. I was so naive." She explained how the medical bills had piled up faster than anyone could have anticipated. Her father's insurance covered some costs, but not the specialized rehabilitation he needed, not the modifications to make their home accessible, not the countless medications and follow-up appointments. Her mother had worked as a teacher, but the salary barely covered basic living expenses once the medical costs started mounting. "I got a job at a local research lab," Sarah said. "It wasn't MIT, but it was something. I thought I could work full-time, save money, and maybe take night classes." She paused, staring at the cracked asphalt beneath her feet. Then Mom started forgetting things. Small stuff at first. Where she put her keys, what day it was. "We thought it was just stress from Dad's condition." The Alzheimer's diagnosis had come like a second devastating blow. Sarah's mother was only 53 years old. The disease was aggressive, stealing her memories and capabilities at a frightening pace. Someone needed to be home with her during the day. Someone needed to manage her medications, keep her safe, handle the increasing complexity of caring for 2 ill parents. "My brother Tommy was my last hope," Sarah continued, and Marcus heard her voice crack slightly. "He was working construction, making decent money. We had a plan. He'd take the day shift with Mom and Dad. I'd take nights, and we'd trade off. It wasn't perfect, but it could have worked." The car accident had happened on a rainy Tuesday morning. A delivery truck had run a red light, slamming into Tommy's pickup. He'd survived, but the injuries to his spine and legs meant he'd never work construction again. He could walk with assistance, but chronic pain and limited mobility meant he needed help too. "So there I was at 21 years old," Sarah said, "with 2 parents who needed full-time care and a brother who was learning to walk again. The research lab couldn't accommodate the schedule I needed. I started waitressing because the hours were flexible, the tips were cash I could use immediately, and I could pick up shifts at multiple places." She told him about the years that followed, working 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week across 3 different restaurants, using her lunch breaks to drive home and check on her family, sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, watching her savings account, the little emergency fund she'd managed to build, get drained by one crisis after another. Tommy's doing better now, she added, a small note of pride entering her voice. He got trained as a computer technician, works from home. He can help with Mom and Dad during the day. Dad passed away 3 years ago, which sounds terrible to say, but it was almost a relief. He'd been suffering for so long. Marcus listened, feeling each word like a physical weight. Here was someone who'd had every advantage he'd lacked: natural intelligence, discipline, opportunity, and life had simply crushed those advantages under circumstances no one could have predicted or prevented. You never reached out, Marcus said quietly. You never asked for help. Sarah finally looked at him directly, and he saw something fierce in her eyes despite the exhaustion. Who would I have asked, Marcus? You disappeared. Our other friends went off to their own lives. And honestly, what was I supposed to say? Hey, remember me, the smart girl with the bright future? Well, I'm drowning. Can you save me? Pride is a funny thing. It's sometimes all you have left. Let me help you, Marcus said immediately. I can pay off all the medical bills. Get your family the best care. You can finally go back to school, finish your degree. No. Sarah's voice was firm. I don't want charity, Marcus. I'm happy you succeeded, truly. But I don't need your pity. Her pride stung him, but he understood it. This was the same determination that had made her extraordinary in high school. Life had beaten her down, but it hadn't broken her spirit. It's not charity, Marcus insisted. It's paying back a debt. You helped me when I needed it most. Remember when you tutored me? You never asked for anything in return. That was different. We were friends. We still are, Marcus said softly. At least, I'd like us to be. Sarah shook her head, wrapping her arms around herself as the night air grew colder. You don't understand, Marcus. You can't just swoop in with your billions and fix everything. Money doesn't solve the kind of problems I have. My mother doesn't recognize me half the time anymore. My brother lives with chronic pain every single day. These aren't things you can write a check for. Marcus stepped closer, careful not to invade her space. You're right. I can't fix everything, but I can make things easier. Better care for your mother means more good days, more moments of clarity. Better pain management for Tommy means he can actually live his life, not just survive it. And you, Sarah, you deserve a chance to breathe, to sleep a full night, to remember what it feels like to have dreams again. I have dreams, she said defensively. They're just different now. They're about making sure Mom is comfortable, that Tommy can keep his job, that we can keep the house. Those are my dreams. Those are survival goals, Marcus countered gently. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're not the dreams you used to have. Remember when you'd talk about developing prosthetics that could feel touch? About creating affordable medical devices for people in developing countries? You wanted to save lives, Sarah. Thousands of them. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she quickly wiped them away. That girl doesn't exist anymore, Marcus. She died a long time ago, somewhere between the second mortgage on the house and learning how to change adult diapers. You need to accept that. I don't accept it, Marcus said, his voice growing passionate. I've spent the last 12 years building companies, making deals, creating technology. You know what I've learned? Talent like yours doesn't just disappear. It might get buried, it might get postponed, but it doesn't vanish. You're still brilliant, Sarah. You're still capable of extraordinary things. Brilliant, she laughed, but there was no humor in it. I serve hash browns for a living, Marcus. I haven't read a scientific journal in 15 years. I wouldn't even know where to begin anymore. The field has moved on without me. Then we'll catch you up, Marcus said simply. I have resources, connections, access to the best minds in biomedical engineering. You think I got where I am by knowing everything? I got here by surrounding myself with people smarter than me and learning from them. Sarah turned away from him, staring out at the empty highway beyond the parking lot. A truck rumbled past, its headlights briefly illuminating them before fading into the distance. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Is it guilt? Do you think helping me will somehow absolve you for not staying in touch? The question hit harder than Marcus expected. He took a moment to consider it honestly. Maybe partly, he admitted, but it's more than that. When I saw you tonight, I realized something. I've been so focused on building my empire that I forgot what actually matters. You helped me when I had nothing to offer you in return. You believed in me when I was just some kid with big talk and no results. That meant something, Sarah. It still means something. She was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could see her shoulders shaking slightly. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm scared, Marcus. Scared that if I let myself hope again, if I let myself want more than just getting through each day, it'll all come crashing down. I don't know if I can survive another disappointment. Marcus felt something shift inside him. This wasn't about money or opportunity or even redemption. This was about a friend who'd been strong for so long that she'd forgotten it was okay to be vulnerable, to accept help, to believe in possibilities again. You don't have to decide tonight, he said gently. Just let me take you to breakfast tomorrow. Let's talk, really talk about what you need and what might be possible. No pressure, no obligations. Just two old friends catching up. Can you give me that much? Sarah turned back to face him, and in the dim light, he saw something flicker in her eyes. Not quite hope, but perhaps the memory of what hope used to feel like. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. Breakfast, she agreed, but I'm paying for my own coffee. What Marcus did next wasn't what anyone expected. He didn't write a check or offer her a job out of pity. Instead, he spent the next 3 weeks in Ohio, taking time away from his company for the first time in years. He met Sarah's family, understanding the depth of her responsibilities. Then he made her a genuine proposition, not as a billionaire helping a struggling friend, but as an entrepreneur recognizing untapped potential. Marcus invested in creating a medical technology startup, with Sarah as the chief innovation officer. She would work remotely, with flexible hours accommodating her family's needs. The company would develop affordable medical devices, a field where her partial MIT education and personal experience gave her unique insights. But here was the real twist. Marcus didn't give her the position. He made her earn it, presenting her ideas to his board, proving her worth. She brought innovations nobody else had considered, solutions born from years of navigating the healthcare system's failures firsthand. Within a year, their company had developed a revolutionary home care monitoring device. Sarah's inventions were finally changing the world, just differently than she'd once imagined. And Marcus learned something invaluable. Success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about remembering who helped you climb and being worthy of that help when you finally arrive. Those 3 weeks in Ohio transformed both of them. Marcus stayed at a modest hotel downtown, spending his days at Sarah's home, meeting her mother during her lucid moments, talking with Tommy about his work and struggles, understanding the daily reality of their lives. He didn't arrive with solutions. He arrived with questions, genuinely wanting to learn what they needed. Sarah was skeptical at first, treating him like a tourist visiting poverty, someone who'd leave once the novelty wore off. But Marcus kept showing up. He helped Tommy troubleshoot computer problems. He sat with Sarah's mother, listening to her stories from the past, the memories she could still access. He researched local resources, connected the family with better healthcare providers, used his network to find specialists who actually listened. During those weeks, something unexpected happened. In the evenings, after Sarah's dinner shift, they'd sit on her back porch drinking coffee, talking like they used to. Sarah began opening up about the problems she saw in healthcare. Not abstract academic problems, but real, concrete issues she'd witnessed daily. The monitoring systems that were too complicated for elderly patients to use. The medical alerts that gave false alarms, causing panic. The home care devices that cost thousands of dollars but broke after months of use. You know what's crazy? Sarah said one night, "I've learned more about what patients actually need in the past 15 years than I ever would have learned in a lab. I just never had the resources to do anything about it." That's when Marcus saw the opportunity. Not to rescue Sarah, but to partner with her. He brought his business expertise, his funding, his connections. She brought something far more valuable, real-world understanding of problems that needed solving. The board presentation was Sarah's idea. "If you just hand me this position, I'll always wonder if I actually earned it," she told Marcus. "I need to know I'm good enough, that my ideas have merit beyond our friendship." She spent 2 weeks preparing, nervous but energized in a way Marcus hadn't seen since high school. Tommy helped with the technical presentation. Her mother, during a good afternoon, told Sarah how proud she was. When Sarah walked into that boardroom and presented her vision for accessible, affordable home healthcare technology, she wasn't asking for charity. She was offering solutions to problems the board hadn't even realized existed. The vote was unanimous. The monitoring device they developed, a simple, intuitive system that tracked vital signs and detected emergencies without overwhelming patients with complexity, became a massive success. But more importantly, it helped people like Sarah's mother, like her father had been, like millions of families struggling with home care. Sarah never went back to waitressing, but she never forgot it either. Every device they designed was tested with one question: would this actually help someone like my family? That perspective, born from struggle rather than privilege, became their company's greatest strength. 2 years after that chance meeting at the diner, Marcus stood at a healthcare innovation conference, watching Sarah accept an award for their device. She thanked her family, her team, and then she looked at Marcus. "Success isn't about where you start or where you end up," she said. "It's about who walks beside you on the journey, and whether you're solving problems that actually matter." Marcus realized then that he hadn't saved Sarah. They'd saved each other. Him for becoming someone who forgot why success mattered, and her for believing her dreams were dead. Sometimes the best business partnerships, like the best friendships, are built on seeing potential in each other when the world has stopped looking. The girl who was destined to change the world had done exactly that. The path just looked different than anyone expected. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.